Welcome, everybody. I'm glad we have a nice turnout today for the winter 2021 RED meeting. Hope everybody is well and safe and working their way through the pandemic. If you're like me, it's given me a lot of time to work on projects that have been sitting on my shelves for way too long. Yeah, so that's a good thing. We have a few folks who have volunteered to do show and tell today, and but before we do that, we usually to get started we do the member introductions, just kind of a quick introduction of who you are and a little bit about your modeling. And I'll go ahead and get started. I'm Scott Lockhart, and I model the Santa Fe, and I like collecting weird locomotives too. And
yes, you do.
as some of you have seen, and maybe I'll do a show and tell on some of those that I've collected for the next meeting. Anyway, so. David, you want to go next? David Norris, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. I might as well. I live here in Fairfield, California, and it's nice to have this Zoom, instead of having to go to all travel, a long hour or two drive all the way to the Marilyn Monroe Memorial Hall. But I like going there, but anyway, I modeled I have some Burlington Northern F-45s A and B units. I built it, and I've got Northwestern Pacific, including this one over here that, and I already got chastised for already. Somebody didn't raise an alarm about one. Oh, a girl pulling a train. The locomotive engineer is female. So I've just might not be able to run on his layout again. I don't know. I don't know. But I just decided, so that's what I'm doing here, and I'll let. Oh, believe I got somebody at the door. Okay, I'll let you go on to the next guy.
Okay, David Grunman.
Yeah, I model the Great Northern. You've seen some pictures of my layout in the past. I tend to do it in selected areas. They have a particular trestle that blew down in a storm in the very early 1900s, and that was rebuilt. I plan to put that in. I just haven't had time right now because I've been, it's a long story, but we had a ceiling I put in the garage when we first built this house about 40 years ago. And it was kind of coming down, so I had someone put a hard ceiling in, which meant that I took everything out of the garage so they could do their work. Now I'm repopulating it, in the process getting rid of a bunch of stuff. Emphasis on the S. Anyway, I haven't done much model railroading. I have a couple of things I'm doing now in my mind. One, I have the Cornerstone Brewery, Whitewater or something like that. I built that and it turned out pretty good. There aren't any floors in it, so that's something I need to do. Also have the Campbell kit for the, forget the name of the small brewery, but I'm going to put right next door to it. And then between the two of them, I'm put some picnic benches out there, a couple trees, and then people passed out drinking. And it'll be located right next to the oil refinery, so why not? Well, that's where I am today.
Thank you, Dave. Vern.
I have my frog in my throat as well as on my switches. I have the biggest little railroad in captivity. The Colville Republican Palouse. It's a 1944 era proto-freelance railroad based in Spokane, Washington. And it's all steam. And Trains are not long. They're limited to six cars, including the caboose. But still, you do get a lot of congestion, and once in a while, your engine can be in one town, and your caboose can be in another. It's a linear spaghetti bowl. It's point to point, Spokane out to Republic in the north and down to Lewiston in the south. Lately, I've been doing some construction that has been long overdue. It's pretty much done now, and now I need to do the interior of my Helix. I've been recently concentrating on some rolling stock that came my direction, making one POS look into something that will be okay at 4 feet. And that's been taking up my interest, and I'm trying very hard to finish projects in my workroom so that I can tell there's an area that I can do a project. Coming along on that. In terms of major stuff, though, I'm nowhere, and I'm in a period of my life where something is breaking at my house almost daily. They're minor things, but I have to take care of them. And the long story short, things keep coming up that keep me from doing what I want to do on the railroad. End of today's story.
Thank you, Vern. Ed?
Yeah, I'm Ed Mern, and I modeled the NWP about 1958. The layout is in back of me, actually. Kind of gathering cobwebs since last March for the most part, but it still works. And been mostly spending my time working on structure, scenery kind of stuff. Mostly this Petaluma Drawbridge thing that has been the focus of my railroad life for the last year. So yeah, and in show and tell, after, you know, if there's time, we have a few interesting things on the agenda for that, and I've been asked to moderate that. So if it turns out that there's some time, I'll flash a few photos of the last week or so. You can see what's happening with that. So that's it.
Thank you. Peter?
Morning, everybody. My modeling is European in prototype, more very freelance. I'm like Vern, only I've got a little bit more space than him, but my layout's kind of in the same situation in many ways, being spaghetti. And it models southeastern Germany and northwestern Austria. And it's got 4 endpoints in that area. So it's north, south, east, west sort of railroad. And it's in HO scale, but it's uses the European Märklin track system, and so it's a little bit different than everybody else's usually. My setup is operational. That's good for now if they're.
Thank you, Peter. Al?
Yeah, hi. I have a small industrial switching layout. It's 12 feet by 2.5 feet deep. It's a totally fictitious industrial area called Alspur, and it gets traffic in from the Northwestern Pacific from all over the country. And then the operator does all of the switching in the yard, HO, in my garage. And it's been way too cold lately to go out there to do much work on it, but it's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Al. Steve?
It's been about a little over a year since I've done any modeling. I had a fall a year ago, December, had 2 operations, and my right hand, the fingers are numb, so I just haven't done any modeling. But one thing I do have, Dan, you'll appreciate this. It's a name tag for you. I have this thing since our last spring meeting, and I guess I'll have to mail it to you.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Gus?
Hi, I model the California Western between Fort Bragg and Willits with a connection to the NWP in Willits. If the California Western ever did it, it's okay on my layout. I did not pick any particular time. There's an 040 and there's the latest diesel on the layout. Most of the NWP stuff is SD9s, and the whole upper area of the layout is the NWP. The whole upper level is the 3-level layout, and it's open whenever for tours. And you can look it up on YouTube under Camp Gus. That's it.
Thanks, Gus. Joe? You're muted, Joe.
I'll see if I can unmute Joe. Oh, let's see.
Oh, there you go.
I've been working on this present layout since 1983. It's in my garage and under my house. And Milwaukee Road is my subject matter. Half of it is under overhead wire, which actually isn't electrified in reality, but nonetheless, I'm able to use pantographs. It's a lot of fun to try to figure out how to generate rail traffic. And there was a program in Model Railroader years ago, decades ago, about how to generate traffic, select freight cars at random based on their location. So it's a lot of fun to try to make up trains without actually making a decision which car is going to be selected. And it makes it more fun to operate using that methodology.
Hey, thank you. John Huckabee.
Yeah, John Huckabee, excuse me. I kind of freelance model railroading, have a lot of Great Northern equipment. I'll explain everything during show and tell later on, why and what for and how it's come.
Thank you. David Turner.
Yes, my name is David Turner. I do not have a layout. I have an extensive test track though. And my modeling is SPNS, Spokane, Portland, and Seattle Railway in the Pacific Northwest, which of course means I have to model the parents a little bit, Great Northern and Northern Pacific. Most of my time is spent in doing modeling, and I also write a quarterly column for the Historical Society. So those deadlines seem to come up about every week instead of 3-4 times a year. But it's, as you know, if you try to write for something, the deadline comes up a lot sooner than you think it should. But in any case, I do a lot of modeling and then try to write it up, both the prototype and the model itself, including things like where do I get decals and things of that nature. So that's my interest. Thank you.
Cliff and Denny. And you're muted.
I'm unmuting you. There you go.
Okay, hi there.
Hi.
Well, I'm the one that's building the railroad, but Denny's helping, and we're both co-chairs of the 2022 convention. Um, I haven't built my railroad yet, but I've got a gentleman coming over Monday to help me out, and we'll get it going. It'll be just a short line railroad, interchanging with probably the Northwestern Pacific. But other than that, ordinarily on today, I'd be out at the Western Railroad Museum because I drive trains out there. We haven't been open for over a year, so it'll be interesting to see what, if anything, works out there when we get out there. And if anybody knows anybody that is interested in acquiring a speeder, we've got one for sale. Gotten to the point where it's a little bit difficult to get in and out of it due to age, but otherwise it's sitting out next to my house. It runs, so that's about it. Denny, you want to say anything?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I'll wait till my turn.
Okay.
Thank you. Marvin Schenk, and you're muted.
Marvin.
Hello.
Hello.
I haven't been able to get to the last couple of meetings. Well, I'm up in Mendocino County, and my interest is in the Northwestern Pacific, modeling an HO, and especially the Albion branch of that railroad. Haven't been doing much modeling. I'm trying to rev up where I was about a year and a half ago, laying out a L-shaped switching layout in connection with that. Just lots of other things in the way, a lot of house projects and stuff, but glad to join the group today.
Welcome. Joan.
Yes.
Oh, no. Well, okay, Joe, go ahead.
The other Joe.
I said Joan, but that's okay. You're on. Joan's still muted, so.
Oh, Joan. Okay, go Joan.
Okay, Joan, go ahead.
Oh.
Joan. There you go.
Enunciate, or which one are we talking about?
We're talking about Joan.
I think it's Abbott and Costello.
It is.
myself.
Who's on first?
Who's on first?
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
My name's Joan Fleck, and I do HO scale. I got involved many years ago to support my son's interest, and I got addicted. It's a fabulous hobby. I belong to Coastal Valley Lines, which is a modular group. And of course, we've been on hold now for over a year. And I'm also building a home layout, and it's a lot of fun. It's kept me sane this past year. I make a lot of mistakes, but I learn a lot, and I like hanging out with all you guys. So thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
Sure. I model, if you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I model the Rocky Mountain divisions of the, at least portions of them, of the Northern Pacific and Milwaukee. The layout's under construction. I think last time on Show and Tell, I gave a quick overview. I ran my first trains New Year's Day. So that part of it is working ahead, and it's a prototype layout. Still settling down on the dates, but it'll be either late 30s or early 40s. That's the time period I'm most interested in, and been able to keep chipping away at it.
Good. Thank you. David Lightfoot.
Well, I'm just an armchair modeler. Have a lot of old NWP railroad material, but haven't actually built too much yet.
Okay. Thank you.
David Lightfoot, I've seen some of your photographs on the wall in the office there at the Eye Care Institute, and I enjoy your photographs.
Yeah, a couple of those were the New York Central, 999 engine, I think, which was above my wife's father's bed when he was growing up in Sausalito. So we still have those and all sorts of other stuff.
Great. Okay.
David, I've got your name tag also.
Oh,
Well, I'll have to get it over to you.
how am I supposed to know who I am if I don't have a name badge?
Right. Oh, got it here. So
So true. Okay, Joe, finally, we're back.
Okay. Yeah, Marvin knows me. Let's see, I'm modeling in NN3, the Casper, South Fork and Eastern up here. I live up in Fort Bragg, so down the road is Casper, so really got hooked on that. I've taken modules to many shows with Tom Knapp, Bruce Hunt, those guys. I don't know what to say. Now I'm trying to install a surround track system in the modules, which is kind of an interesting problem because of the, with DCC, you'd think you wouldn't have much wiring, but with surround tracks, it all comes back. This looks like a block wired layout setup, Anyway, that's my interest.
Thank you. Bruce?
So I'm visiting from the Daylight Division, and I appreciate being allowed to come in and listen to your division meeting. I model the Southern Pacific down in the south where I live, down near Santa Barbara, and it's fairly modern, 1994. My layout's still in progress, but with all the COVID, I've been sidetracked, and I'm looking at figuring out how to do remote operations on my layout. I've installed about 4 or 5 cameras to look at the different areas and have it all come up on one screen. So you can do a Zoom meeting and see everything on the layout and then control the locomotives. I still need to put a couple of cameras in locomotives so that the engineer can see where they're going. I'm also in the midst of putting in an ABS signaling system, which I showed a little bit of in a DTC presentation for the Operation Special Interest Group back on January 3rd this year. But most of my time has been spent as the clinic chair for the PCR convention in Fresno and for the Rails by the Bay convention, National NMRA convention that was supposed to be in Santa Clara. We're still going ahead with it, but it'll all be virtual. So that's what I've been spending my time on. And thanks again for letting me sit in.
You're welcome. Dave Grenier. And it looks like you're muted.
Yep, I'm trying to get it unmuted. Okay, Yeah, this is Dave Grenier. I'm also visiting from Daylight Division. Thank you for the invitation. I'm down here in Fresno now, and I don't do any modeling at all. I haven't done modeling since I moved from the Bay Area. I used to live in Sunnyvale, belonged to the Santa Clara Club, and used to do quite a bit of modeling there, but I haven't done anything since I left in 2006. I got interested in doing websites for the Daylight Division website, and then it just took off from there, and I've done about 25, 30 websites since 2006.
Wow.
So they keep me busy.
Yeah.
And as Bruce said, the National Convention is transitioning from in-person to virtual, and at the committee meeting Wednesday night, I got tapped to do that website because our webmaster quit. So it'll be challenging, to say the least.
You're a busy person.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
On my screen, I don't have anybody else. Is there someone who's I don't see that needs to be introduced? I guess we're okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you for the folks coming from out of the division. Glad you could make it. And I think the next, let's see, I've got the agenda here. We're doing the convention updates. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Denny Balmer.
Okay, thanks. So we're in pretty good shape for the 2022 convention. Most of my committee is on here anyway, so I've got most of the stuff ready to populate the website. The registration page is ready to go live, and our plan is our plan is to go live April 21st. We've got Dave was set up all of our emails, so we've got all our emails in place. We've got everything. Our logos finalized. We've got shirts finalized. The convention car, we're almost there. We've been talking with AccuRail about the convention car. We're looking at doing a convention building. That's still kind of up in the air, but we've still got a little bit of time to get that squared away before we go live in April. Our whole goal was to have everything ready to go so that when we go live on April 21st, when you go to registration, everything's there. Your excursions, the shirts, your registration, you can purchase everything all at once without having to come back and forth to the website to make your purchases. So hopefully we have everything ready to go, and you can do a one stop, get it all done. We've got 2 excursions that are semi-confirmed. We're going to do Sturgeon Mill again and the Corbel Winery Tour again. It was very popular, and it was a very small group that went last time. So we're going to try that again so that hopefully more people will have an opportunity. And that's about it. We're in really good shape. Let's see, if I do this, I'm going to share my screen real quick and see if I can show you what the logo looks like or not. There we go. So that's what the logo looks like for 2022. Return to the Redwoods is our theme. Okay, and then how do I stop this now? Go back to this. Stop. Okay. The only thing we're still kind of up in the air on is we need somebody to do operating sessions, to get the operating sessions coordinated. So if any of you would love to volunteer, we'd really like some help. We've got the rest of the committee is pretty well set, but we still need somebody for operating sessions. So that's where we're at.
And Denny, what are the dates in 2022?
April 21st through the 24th.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As far as I know, I think the last thing I heard about the PCR convention is that a decision is going to be made on Tuesday. Can anybody confirm that as to whether or not it's going to take place live as opposed to possibly virtual?
Yeah, you're right. There is a committee meeting on Tuesday, and on that agenda is making a decision about that.
Okay.
So there's no formal decision as yet.
Okay. And I think that's about it for the conventions. I was going to turn the meeting over to Ed and put him in charge of the nominations.
Yeah, I didn't know. I knew I was going to do the show and tell. I didn't know about the nominations.
Well, I guess since I'm the superintendent, I thought I needed a neutral party to do that. So
okay, all right.
And you're more familiar with the protocol than I am. So
well, yeah, basically we have to have an election. We have to elect someone to replace you, and the election's going to be online. Which, by the way, if anyone hasn't voted on the PCR election yet, just a little needle to remind you, but you have until the end of next week to do it. And we haven't set an exact date for the RED election yet, but it'll happen probably in March sometime. And then at the next RED meet, which would be May, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Then we can announce the results and the new superintendent and take over. So the question is, who is interested in running?
And are there any nominations?
Yeah, the one thing is you don't want to nominate somebody without asking them first if it's okay. Well, I don't know, talk about what it's like being the superintendent, see, you know.
Well, okay, it kind of came out of left field for me. One day, I think Dave Crocher came up and said, we're looking for a superintendent. And I'm not usually one of those guys who, instantly raises his hand. I need some coercion in order to do it. And, but I said, sure, why not? I'm retired and I have time available. And I found it to be very rewarding, especially, transitioning from the live meetings into the Zoom format, which seems to work very well. And I've even heard some people say maybe we ought to consider doing a couple of Zoom meetings a year, so people who live farther away from Santa Rosa can attend virtually. Or, maybe there's some way we can do it, during a live meeting, do a Zoom portion of that, or, do that on Zoom. Who knows? I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but it's been, like I said, it's been very rewarding for me. It hasn't taken up a tremendous amount of time. I also do the call board, and I will continue to do that. So that's not something the superintendent will have to do. And I've had support from a lot of people to help me be the superintendent. It's not something you do all by yourself. You do have a staff, your staff of officers who help you, and you can reach out to other members as well for help and information. So I highly recommend it. It's like I say, you have 4 meetings a year basically that you're responsible for. And again, you're not alone when you're putting that together. I need to thank Al for being the person who put the Zoom portion of these meetings together. And I think without someone to do that, we would, it would have been a lot harder. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Please consider.
We have some other former RED superintendents here too. Steve, what you have any thoughts? Mr. Skold, Professor Skold, are you there? It looks like his image is frozen.
What do you need? Yes, I'm here.
Just some thoughts about what it's like being superintendent. Oh, it looks like he's muted. We have any other former superintendents in the group?
There's Steve.
Oh, where
Looks
is
like
where'd you go?
Facebook was shutting me down again.
Oh, there you are. Did you hear the question?
No.
Oh, yeah, we were just talking about, Scott was talking about what the job of superintendent is like. And I thought that if anyone else here had been RED superintendent, they might have a couple of words to say. Like, thank God it's not me again, or something like that. What would you say?
It's been a long time where my memory is fading.
Okay, well, I remember you as being very organized, and staff meetings were very organized under your jurisdiction. I remember that. And you had.
I was also the superintendent at one time,
right.
as well as the chief clerk, as well as the call board editor, as well as the membership chair, as well as on and on and on.
Yes. Any words of wisdom, Gus?
It's not a difficult job. I did it from Seattle. when I moved up there, no one would take my place, and so I said, "Oh, I'll just do it from Seattle. Big deal."
Okay, so so what we ought to do is, if anyone has a name in mind or that they want to pass on, you can put it in the chat box if you know how to use that. or later get in touch with Scott, since he's still the superintendent here. I guess he would be the person to collect the names.
Yeah, just email me. And I put out a couple of emails about nominating, and my email's been included. So I can sit on another one. In fact, I'll put it in a meeting report.
And the chief clerk paymaster is the other elected official for RED. And I guess that's not on the election this time, Scott?
I don't believe so. I
Okay.
think that's next year.
Okay, next year. Okay, all right. Well, we don't have to worry about that one. Okay. That's it for that topic. Hopefully we can roust up a couple of names. It would be nice to have a contested election for a change. Wouldn't that be kind of exciting? So I guess that's the end of that topic. Is that right, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. You're on.
Okay, so I've got, I'm gonna be kind of calling on people from a list of names here that volunteered. And there's four names here. And then if there's I can tack on a little bit at the end if it turns out to be reasonable. And then the first one is David Norris. And he's got another, I've seen you do this before, David. You kind of imagineer things a little bit, sort of what if kind of models. It sounds like you have that in mind now.
Yeah, so I got the SGP-7 that I just built with a female engineer. And I've heard a few comments about that, the choice of crew member. Oh well, but anyway, I don't know what to say about it. I really am not not the type of person that into public relations or any. I don't have leadership skills. I'm not that. I'm sort of a what some people say. One person described me as a hermit, and so that's why I usually never have taken any leadership roles, as I don't have the social skills to do that. But anyway, I thank you for considering me for this, and but I'll have to decline because of my inability to deal with the public.
Okay. So how about Dan? It looks like you have a layout you'd like to give us a kind of a tour or introduction to. Oops, you're muted. Dan is still muted.
There we go. I should.
There we go. Okay.
Muted.
Uh-oh.
Now, what you might want to do, folks, is to get a closer look, is switch to speaker view on your view options, and then you can see what people are showing. Dan is still not coming through on the sound.
Well, I've got mine unmuted.
Oh, there we
so-
go.
There you go.
I know, speaker views up here.
Wasn't talking much, I guess. Now I got to figure out how to reverse the camera so I can show you what I'm looking at instead of looking at me. Somewhere.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
There's a way to do this somehow. Just give me a moment here.
You just have to manually grab the doggone camera and pick it up and turn it around.
Yep, may have to do that. Well, maybe we'll just turn it around. Anyway, last time I had been laying track and had hoped to start running trains by Christmas. I made it by the
New Year's Day, which was a start. So now I'm moving on to build the next little section. And we'll see if this works. Okay. So I just turned it around, I guess.
Turn it around.
Okay. The modeling I do is this working at all to see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'm doing is modeling what's the far eastern end of my layout. This is the town of Logan, Montana. And in it, some of you may be familiar with Jack Parker's layout. He used to run Central Valley. And that was his star layout, was just really all he had was Logan. But talking to the people that are running it now, it's not an accurate representation of Logan. And unfortunately, I'm really into the prototyping of things. So I've been struggling to try to make this one as accurate as possible. And what I've got is a number of books that I use in researching the area. This one, the railroad stations of Gallatin area, which is Gallatin County is where Logan is. And this one actually had a plat map from 1936, which is close enough to my target dates. So it would help me lay it out, give me an accurate. And then just recently, the Northern Pacific Historical Association came out with a special offer, I guess you'd say. You subscribe, join them for a period of longer period of time. It was 4 years, and then you got a thumb drive with a huge amount of information on it. And part of that was the track profiles and more detailed plat maps of all of the line. I was interested mainly in the Rocky Mountain division. So it became a source. Then there's another series. These are trolley publications, I think from the 60s. And one of their episodes, they had a 3-parter on Montana trolleys, which gave me a lot of information and included the Gallatin Valley Railroad, which ran through Logan as well. Milwaukee owned it and ran it. And then there's the usual series of other books that I've used. This one, Rails to Gold and Silver, done by Bill and Jan Taylor. When I lived in Montana, we were all together in a club up there. And he and his wife have done an excellent job of some historical aspects of the area. So that was the start. So what I got laid out roughly so far is this engine servicing area where there was a coaling tower and an ash pit and service. And then back, this is the back side of the depot. And then over here in the corner is going to be the little 2-stall or 3-stall roundhouse. One thing I have to decide is which side of 1936 I'm going to be focusing in on, because it burned down in 1936 and they never rebuilt it. One of the company, or one of the people that did a lot of photography for the Northern Pacific, Ron Nixon, he has a series of pictures that show right after the fire. But what's interesting is it shows a lot of the area around Logan as well, or other parts of Logan. There were 2 locomotives in the roundhouse when it went to the ground, a Mikado and a Pacific. Then the others, there's Sanborn maps, and believe it or not, Logan, little town of Logan, had Sanborn maps. So that's where the buildings are. This is a portion of the town
is going to be sandwiched in here. Anyway, the rest of the layout continues on down to what is the staging area for the far east end. This is Livingston, so to speak, which was the division point, beginning of the Rocky Mountain, or the end of the Montana division, depending on which way you're going. And so it's going to be hidden, much like down below the Milwaukee's endpoint, Harlingen is there. So that's kind of where I am right now. Just working my way through, finding different resources, trying to settle down and not do too much research, because then you can just bog down because you're continually finding new information about it. So I've kind of settled in, got it laid out so that it makes pretty good sense. Logan was a division point at one time back before 1930 or 25, but it's mainly the point where the Northern Pacific lines break into two, one line that went to Helena and one line that went to Butte. And Butte line was mostly, not mostly, but that was where the main passenger North Coast Limited ran, and Helena was where all the freights ran, because it's a little better route for grades. And so it was kind of a busy point, and we'll talk about it more later as I maybe get it up and running. So that's all I've got.
Wow, that seems like a lot.
Is there any questions?
Yeah, are there any particular modeling issues that you've run into that you have solved or need more help on? I'm just curious about modeling issues.
Well, other than the usual one of not having enough room to model everything you want to model, it's figuring out how to selectively reduce it. So these lines in the Rocky Mountain division were very low density. So one of the things I've done is I've done my research and found things change over time. Mostly fires caused the problem, or parts of the town burned down. I've kind of frozen it, and buildings that may have burned down in the 20s are still there in my layout. So it increases the density a little bit by expanding the time frame that you lay it on. The other is just laying it out. One of the things I was able to accomplish after a lot of design work was that all of there's 3 mountain passes, and they're all represented by helixes on this as you change levels. So getting them to fit into that and still maintain some proportion. Generally, I have 1 to 3 train links between towns, which was one of my druthers. The given, which is the one I've struggled the most with, is the portion that I want to model, which was Logan to Garrison, or Garrison to Logan, depending on which way you're going, including Butte and Helena. So that's roughly 125 miles of line. So reducing that down has been a challenge, but enough scratch paper and enough trial runs and mock-ups, lots of mock-ups that I've done over time in order to make it work. But it seems, I'm happy with it at this point. We'll see as it gets developed. The other thing I found is, because trying to do prototype, is I'll rough out the track plan until I feel real comfortable with it. And then I'll finalize it like I did with Logan, full size, so that I've got mock-ups of buildings to stick in there.
Thank you.
Okay. Dan, how deep a reach is it back to that turntable in the corner?
Well, first off, it's a bit of a reach. The 2 points on mine is I'm tall and long armed. So for me, it's not a big deal. It's about a 3-foot reach. So it's at the far reaches. There's no turnouts back there, just the turntable. So I'm hoping that that'll work out fairly well. to access. I can access it underneath, but that's part of this whole experiment of some of these, because I've got a couple of places. I've got another place where I've got a Y that goes into a corner like that. And so I've got one turnout back there. That one's going to have to be bulletproof. I can reach it, but it's a stretch.
Hey, any other questions, comments? All right. Well, it's impressive. How
Thank you.
How big of a space are we talking about here? It looks fairly generous.
Yeah, the room is what, 27 feet by 31 feet. And then there's a little extension off of it where I have my workbench. So it's a nice space.
What kind of curve radii do you have on there?
I have 30-inch radius. That's the minimum.
Wow.
Some of them are a little broader.
I'm envious.
Well, what struggles is Milwaukee's locomotives. They have their main passenger locomotive that served this was a electric locomotive and a Quill, and it probably would be much more comfortable on about a 42-inch radius. So I've run across a couple of articles on how to get it to handle 30. So it's in the repair shop getting modified.
And you're running some trains now on the limited area that you have finished?
Yeah, I've run both the Milwaukee and the other part of it. Here's the Northern Pacific one that pulled in. This is about a 24 car train, which is about the maximum limit for what I can do here.
And do you have DCC or DC?
Yeah, DCC Digitrax.
Okay.
The club I belonged to years ago, that's what they started with. So that's, once you make an investment in one or the other, you're kind of stuck with it unless you got lots of free money.
That's always good. If anyone can swing that. Okay. Anybody else got any questions? No? Well, thank you very much. That was, I like to see layouts in progress like that. It's inspiring.
Well, maybe the red meetings are probably about as frequent as I want to show it off right now. So next time, maybe we'll have a little bit more.
Okay. All right. Next on our list is Dave Turner, who has a PowerPoint. Those are always good. Let's see. Where are you, Dave?
Okay, I'm here.
Okay.
I think I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay, good.
So you need to screen share this PowerPoint.
Right. So I need to screen share.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
All right. Yes, I wanted to talk about the saga of modeling the SPNS 38,600 series tank cars using American Limited Models HO scale GATC 16,000 gallon tank car. It's to me, it shows some of the perils and pitfalls of trying to do prototype modeling. And I've just summarized some of the information that I've gathered about this car. And I wanted to let you know what I've been working on for the last 6 months or so, trying to pull this together. Several years ago, American Limited introduced the General American Tank Company 16,000 gallon tank car that was produced in Santa Fe colors. I thought it looked like an SPNS car, so I did some research trying to figure out was this car appropriate for modeling the car that I wanted. And one of the things about prototype modeling is trying to find an appropriate model that you can modify to create the prototype that you're looking for. So among things I found were the equipment diagram for the SPNS car. I asked online and found someone who would provide me the equipment diagram for the Santa Fe car, found that the dimensions were the same. And using photographs, it looked the same. So I bought one of their cars, spray painted it black to cover up the lettering that was already there, and then lettered it using an old Champ decal. I also changed a few details, such as changed the way the brake wheel worked and added heater pipes to the end of the car. Note that the lettering has the SPNS and the car number has the horizontal bars above and below the lettering, and it has a reweigh date of new 8/49. So according to the data that I have from the equipment diagram, they were built in August and September of 1949. So I wrote this car model up in my article in the SPNS Historical Society magazine to share my modeling. My goal in writing for the magazine is to encourage people to do modeling. So I try to find modeling projects that are relatively easy and straightforward, and find what materials can be found by the average modeler in order to be able to do a similar kind of project. They don't have to follow my modeling, but I'm trying to encourage modeling in the population in general and the members. So that's the goal of my writing. Later on, in early 2019, the Historical Society was contacted by American Limited Models about data for a potential SPNS car in the second run. And that request was passed along to me so I could, and I provided some photos to the designer who was working on this. See if I can find my, here we go. Okay, so you can see my arrow on the screen, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, notice right in here on this car, this photo, that is the American, that's the
ACI.
automatic car identifier label that was placed on cars in 1967. So a car that has that label on it is going to be a car that would be modeling after 1967 and not before. And notice on this, well, no, where's my, on this photograph, notice this label right here. That's called a consolidated COTS label for clean, inspect and test the brake and bearings of the car. Those labels were supposed to be put in various places, and later on it was consolidated into one spot. And that was done in the mid-1970s. So a car with that on it would have not been seen prior to about 1973. Let me go back to this. So these are the kind of photographs that I supplied to the designer, and I made the assumption that they were also going to be able to find photographs from other people, other sources, including, I was hoping, they would find an as-built car. One of the things the manufacturers like to be able to do when they introduce cars is to build a version in the as delivered or as built, maybe using a builder's photo or something of that nature. But I didn't have those photos available to me, and so I didn't provide them. So American Limited Model decided they were going to produce 8 cars in 3 groups. 4 would be as delivered, 2 were in a late livery number 1, and 2 in a late livery number 2. And this is significant because the SB&S went out of existence in March of 1970 in the Burlington Northern merger. So for SB&S modelers, we want cars before 1970. Burlington Northern modelers want cars after 1970. So I noted that in the as delivered group, that there were a number of things that needed to be changed in order to make it accurate for the as delivered purposes. Trying to find my arrow again. There. Where is? Well, you notice on the drawing on the right, there are 6 spots where there's a red box and a green circle. And that was my way of communicating the different information I was trying to communicate about things that need to be done on this car. Notice the SB&S and the number does not have the horizontal bars above and below it. The date, for some reason, their interpretation of the date built for this car was August of 1945 instead of 1949. Also, the dates shown on the brake cylinder and above the wheel and at the end of the car where the test dates are for the tank itself, those all said 1945. So I'm concerned with, there are some modelers who, when they see a piece of a model and it has a piece of information that is wrong, they're just going to be very unhappy and express that unhappiness by exploding with comments like, oh, this manufacturer doesn't listen to any reason. They don't produce things. You should never buy their products. Well, that's not my objective. I want people to be able to do modeling and to enjoy their modeling and not to get upset and angry about the process, and nor to be criticizing the manufacturer for their efforts. So there's a fine line to be walked with trying to figure out a way to make corrections and yet not be too vitriolic in the criticism. So this was an ad that American Limited placed in the SB&S Historical Society magazine, and this one is the late livery number 1. It had a reweigh date of 1962. However, it had the ACI label of 1967. And I'll get my arrow to figure out right here. Notice this yellow dot right here. That yellow dot was a symbol that the car had been inspected for a wheel problem. They had, in 1977, there was a batch of bad railroad wheels that were splitting and causing derailments all over the system. So they quickly made an order that cars had to be inspected. Once the inspection was done, if the wheels were okay, they put that yellow dot on there. So with that yellow dot, this car can't be before 1977. So And it has, of course, the consolidated stencil on it and so forth. In order for this car to be used for an earlier date, these things would need to be blanked out. The late livery number 2 had a reweight date of 1978. So it would be a much later car. And of course, it had both the ACI and the consolidated stencil representing later time periods. So what I proposed is I did the research and data, provided data to American Limited staff, who did the artwork to produce a supplemental decal. And they've agreed to print this decal and to insert it into every box of every SPS model that they're producing. This included not only changing decals, but also blank out sections. So some of these sections, like right in here, that's a section of black decal, hopefully of the right color to match the body color of the car. So you can blank out an ACI label so that if you wanted a car that was before 1967, you could blank out the label and get rid of that information. Notice there's also up here, there's a blank spot to be able to blank out the yellow dot. This also includes things like the horizontal lines and different reweigh dates. So the other thing that happened was after the cars were in production in the SPS archives, we found data about a particular feature of these cars. On the end of the car, which I don't have an illustration here, on the end of the car, each tank car has the actual tank gallon size listed. So that will vary between, because every tank is essentially handmade in the factory. Each tank is going to be slightly different. So a 16,000 gallon tank car might actually hold 16,027 gallons or 16,042 gallons. That number is actually printed on the end of the car. And so down here in this bottom area of the decal, there's the different gallons. We found a document in the archives that listed the actual gallons for every tank car by number. So this is a supplemental that one could actually change those. So what I did is I wrote a set of instructions for the application of the decals, which showed what to change based on what time period the modeler wanted. American Limited Models chose to merely add a note to their cars that some photos were posted on their website for reference. These photos included new ones that I had not seen before, but still none from the earliest 15 years of their lives. So we're kind of going without information. We're flying blind, so to speak, because without an accurate photo, and as a matter of fact, the reweigh date that they put on the car, new of August of 1945, was a misinterpretation of a photo that, because it was a poor quality, when they tried to blow it up, you couldn't read the number very well. So I prepared this document to try to be able to give to modelers that showed where the data went on the car and where the data was located on the decal sheet, to be able to make modifications so that a person could model whatever time period they wanted based on their modeling ideas. And this one, so this was the as delivered car with its supplemental decals. And there are also supplementals for the late livery number 1 and late livery number 2. American Limited Model decided in their wisdom not to include my instruction sheet with their cars. So now I'm faced with the question, should I publicize this instruction sheet, say through the Groups IO talk group that's organized for the SPNS? And how do I do that in a way that I don't step on the toes of the manufacturer unnecessarily? You know, by definition, I'm correcting some of their work. But I want to maintain good relationships between the Historical Society and the manufacturer to encourage them to come to us, hopefully sooner in the process and more involved in the process, because part of the problem was we began to tell them about some of these problems when we saw the first illustration of the cars. But by that time, the cars were already in production. In order to make changes, you need to get the feedback earlier in the process. So this is the quandary being faced, is how to effectively provide feedback to make the process run as smoothly as possible and enable the manufacturer to see their way clear to produce a model, because it's their time and their money. And we want to encourage them to produce the models. We want them to be correct if we can manage it.
So it's kind of the politics of model railroad manufacturing.
Exactly.
Oh.
So anyway, the project showed the difficulty of limiting models to those for which good quality photos can be found. Because we've never found a photo from the first 15 years of these cars' lives, does that mean that we can't model them in the as delivered version? Or we shouldn't model them? Or can we back into it? It's a matter of compromise. And so, for example, the horizontal bars above the initials and number of the car, that was AAR standard recommended practice at the time the cars were built in 1949. And that recommendation went away in 1952. Now I have a photo of 1958 of one of these cars. Is just a little sliver of the car, but I can tell that in 1958, this car still had the horizontal bar on it. But all the other photos we've ever found, those horizontal bars have disappeared. So I know it's recommended practice. I know at least one car had them based on one sliver of a photograph I have, but it's not good enough to be used as a definitive model, a definitive picture to guarantee what the model should look like. So that, to me, that's one of the quandaries about trying to do prototype modeling, is how do you manage to do it unless you have really good photographs to work from. This project also showed the difficulty in establishing a good working relationship between the Historical Society and the manufacturer. And it is as Ed said, it's kind of a tightrope figuring out exactly how you want that relationship to go, to be as positive as possible, and to establish a good working relationship that produces good models that modelers are willing to buy and are happy with, and avoid unnecessarily bashing manufacturers over things that can be corrected. It's again, it's walking a fine tightrope of compromises. So that's my presentation. I've got a lot more detail, but I wanted to limit it a little bit. I'm sure I've taken more time than I intended, but trying to explain exactly how this process worked. So does anybody have any questions?
Dave, I know with other like aircraft models and armor and ships, there are vast industries that support doing extra decals and parts to modify the existing models. And I'm not sure if that's relevant to what you're doing, but there doesn't seem to be any issues with the manufacturers of those kits, of those models, having these other supporting industries coming up with additional parts to modify their kits, or to do different decals for their kits as well. So
Right.
just a thought.
Right. Scott, that's right. And you pointed out the example of what I had in mind when I proposed doing the supplemental decal, that, rather as model railroaders, we've kind of fallen into a little bit of a trap that we expect manufacturers to produce perfect models. And the level of the standards that people are going by with Athearn Genesis and things like that, especially the tangent tank cars, they're absolutely gorgeous. They're as accurate as we know how to make them. Partly because there are some really good photo collections from the tank car manufacturers. But we need to somehow be able to create this supplemental market, and I'm, in a sense, trying to create that, but in cooperation with the manufacturer, not in conflict with the manufacturer. So I'm trying to make the cooperation work. And I'm not an expert in how to do this. I'm just struggling along, flying on a wing and a prayer to make sure that this might work right. And I'm facing my next project is to decide exactly how I'm going to talk about this in front of 5,000 members of the SPNS the SPNS chat group on Groups.io, and make sure that I'm doing it in a positive way and an encouraging way. And as I said, my goal is to encourage modelers to do modeling and to enjoy the work and to not get up frustrated and to avoid bashing the manufacturers as well.
Yeah.
Okay, any thoughts or comments or?
Yeah, I was going to add, if I could.
Mhm.
The first off, Dave, just congratulations on the great effort that you've made on this. More historical societies are doing this, and we're getting better models, not perfect, but better models. One suggestion, the Northern Pacific Historic Association has worked with modelers or manufacturers too, and they've done a fair job of getting stuff, but they also produce their own decals. Some of it is to correct or to modify existing models, but you might get a hold of that group and just see how they handle these issues that you're dealing with, because given the detail that prototype modelers want and given the limits that the manufacturers have, you can develop a working relationship. I know NP associations do this with some success, and like I say, they've also just started manufacturing and selling through the association decal sets to make the kind of corrections that you've done, and you've already got the decal set designed. It's just a matter of manufacturing them.
Yes, thank you, Dan. It's a good point. And if you've looked at their NP website for the decal information, you'll see that the NP Association not only produced decals, they've also produced fabulous instruction sheets with color-coded highlights showing where the decal pieces go on the car. And that was the model I was using in my limited way to start this process for creating the decal instruction sheet. But the NP Society has done a great job of working with manufacturers. And that's part of my concern is I want the SPNS Historical Society to be known among the manufacturers as a cooperative society. And if our response is to bash the manufacturers, that will not create a positive relationship where we can work together on solving problems and creating new models. In fact, American Model Limited asked us if we had another car we would suggest to them that they might manufacture. To me, that's a fabulous opening, and you know we want to try to create that relationship where we can work with the manufacturer to produce something that no one else has produced before. And so I've been following the progress of the Northern Pacific Society in their efforts to produce decals and to produce suction sheets. They've done a fabulous job. And I've been in contact with Dean O'Neill in doing that. In the meantime, one of the process we're working on, SPNS has actually put together a program, and I've put together a complete data set, produce passenger car decals, and we're currently in the process of trying to get that organized. It's unbelievably long, involved process to get the information all together into one package and then get it in front of people who have the ability to influence the manufacturer to do the work, unless you're willing to fund it totally up front. So there's a funding issue. There's also a data issue. And then one of the questions is, do you have good quality photographs? And can you put that information in front of the manufacturer in a way that it's a positive? So it occupies a fair amount of my time and effort, and that's why I thought I would share it with the group today, just to show what it is we're working on and what's involved in trying to create models that modelers are going to enjoy using and working with. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, David.
I have something I put in here. With the Great Northern Railway Historical Society, and quarterly we get newsletters and whatnot. But part of that is a modeling sheets. And in that, they go through it and they list the current models that are being produced out or models that are proposed. And we have a wonderful library up in St. Paul, Minneapolis. You go in there and they have all of the records there. And also I think in Seattle is another depository of records. So they're able to go through and document exactly how a particular car is. And they work with the manufacturer. However, the manufacturer, of course, are looking to put the car out to the largest audience possible. So in the modeling sheets that we put out, or they put out, I don't do this, but someone else does. They show where there's variances and then how to correct those variances. And I don't recall having a pushback from the manufacturers on that. So that's my input.
Yes, thank you. The quarterly column that I write is modeled on the modeling pages of the Great Northern Goat, especially those who were done by Dwayne Buck.
Yes.
And the modeling articles that were published by Chris Fursell in Northern Pacific Historical Society magazine. And so what I do is I have a half to 3/4 of a page of a model project, like, for example, the the tank car that I did, modification that I did. And then following that is a page and a half or two of any current models that I've come across that would be appropriate for an SPNS modeler. And so I'm kind of using that format to provide both modeling information about how to do something in a fairly short format, as well as other information from manufacturers about new projects that they're starting, or things that have been introduced, and occasionally even references. I did one list. I listed every SPNS decal and the manufacturer and the part number that I knew of available to all modelers in all scales. So just kind of an inventory of what resources were available. So that's what my writing is on the quarterly basis.
It sounds like the same sort of thing. So it sounds like it works.
No, thank you.
Hey, we have another gentleman with John Huckabee, who might, by the way, I think we passed over on the introductions on John. But here he is, and he has asked if he could show us his layout. Right, John? Whoops, you're muted still.
There we go. I'm having tech support get a camera ready for me here. I live with my wife and two daughters in a mobile home. So you can see that there's not really a hell of a lot of room for model railroading. There's no man cave available, but we have just a nook, and that's the name of the railroad, is the Manook. And my daughter's trying to get her camera so I don't have to lift this thing and turn it around like everybody else does. The way we generate traffic is we roll a dice, and it tells us where to go on the layout. Can you see the board there? I can't.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. We have you roll the dice, and that tells you where you go to pick up a car, and you roll the dice again, and that tells you where you deliver it, and then just an ongoing system. We have a spot called the away yard up there, and the away yard is on the bookcase, and we rotate cars that way. If you roll a double, you change out the engines, and the engines are on the next shelf down, and we do that. Over here in East Manook is we have our source of service is called the Not Safe Life Jacket Company. And these life jackets are Coast Guard approved, by the way. When they come aboard to inspect your boat, they'll ask you about your life jacket, and they say,
Okay.
Here we go.
If you make yeah. How do I get
So you might want to mute the sound to one of the cameras, and that way it will.
Yeah, we got.
Oh,
Because can you see the images?
Yeah.
Yes.
Again, if you pick the speaker.
Okay, there's the Not Safe Life Jacket Company. They come aboard and they'll ask you about your life jacket, and you can say, yes, sir, it's not safe.
I gotta take off here, so I'll just say goodbye. Bye-bye.
And we have our interchange track right here. And our tower. And over here in West Manhook, our industry is called the Prophylactic Pyrotechnic Company. Now, Al's laughing there. They make the rubber bullets and the bean bags that the police use. So that's what comes out of that industry. A long time ago, they used to be called the Pyrotechnic Prophylactic Company, and they made condoms, and that's when a bang meant something. We have our industry, our branch line to Manhook Meadows, and the reason it's not detailed is we change out the buildings every couple of days or so. During the lockdown, I've been building a lot of buildings from all the various laser cut wood companies, Bar Mills and BTS and Foss and all, just anybody I can get a hold of. And that's kind of my layout. I hope everybody can see it. I have a little picture here that
Yeah, if you double click on the picture, it gets big.
well, I'm sorry, I'm not I double clicked on it and it's
Yeah, I got it big.
okay. All right. And so that's really about it. I'm building a lot of buildings and they wind up on the bookshelf here. Once the bookshelf gets full, I've got storage boxes.
You guys live.
It's kind of tough living in a mobile home. That the two disadvantages are there's no attic to go to, and the park manager won't let me put in a basement. So I know that there's a lot of you guys are probably master modelers in your field. I wish that Model Railroader had one for levity and comedy. I'd sure like to put in for it. So I think that's about it. Any questions?
Looking good, John. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you.
John, how often do you operate it?
Well, that's the good thing about the system is I can sit down here and switch out a car or two and just stop. And the way the system generates itself, you just pick up where you left off. I've got a little guy that stands here in front of the car, and if I lose the dice or something, I know that that's where the next action is going to take place. Is the engine goes there, picks up the first in, first out rule, roll the dice again. It'll tell me where to go. And you can stop anytime you want to. And sometimes I'll do 3 or 4 moves and then maybe I might go a couple of weeks without moving anything at all. And we have our buckets of suds of the guy coming through the window. Some of these buildings have interiors to it. The suds bucket's got a scene on the inside, adults only. Got the motorcycle manufacturer, lights come on it. They're all battery operated. You have to take the roof off to turn the battery on, and it shows all the motorcycles that he's got on sale. And that's just what I've been doing.
Great.
Any
Thank you.
questions? Okay, I'll turn it over to somebody else. Thank you very much.
So how are we doing on time, Scott?
We're at we're 12:38, so we're coming up on 1. I think, I don't know, we're probably pretty well done, I think.
Okay.
For the day, if that's okay. And if you have something you want to show, we can do that the next